Thank you. This is Perry Stone, and we want to welcome you to the Perry Stone YouTube channel. The title I've shared with you today about my unborn infant in heaven or in paradise is very unique and very different. But I'd like to share a story with you. Many years ago in the late 1980s, I experienced the most wonderful dream. I dreamed of two little girls, and one of them was very healthy, and the other one did not look as healthy. You could just tell by her appearance that there were physical defects in her body. And the little one that had the defects said nothing to me, but the other one said to me, when I asked her, "Who are you?" And she said, "My name is Amanda, and I'm the little girl that you're going to have." And I said, "Well, who is this?" And she said, "This is Rochelle, my sister." I was in a revival at the T.L. Lowry National Church of God in Fort Washington, Maryland, when I experienced this wonderful dream. Well, we got up that day, and my wife had found out she was pregnant, somewhere around 2 months pregnant. So we got the baby name book out and looked up Rochelle, and it meant from a little stone. And I said, "Pam, I believe we're going to have a little girl." So I got so excited about having a little girl, and the oddest thing happened. Over 7 months later, a boy was born by the name of Jonathan. Well, my wife and I said for years, well, there's got to be a little girl coming. So my wife became pregnant many years ago. And we were so excited. And I said, this has to be the little girl that I saw many years ago in the dream. In fact, I had two dreams of two little girls. Well, about 7 weeks into it, my wife had a miscarriage. It was awful. And then later on, I began to pray, and I came home from a trip one day, and I can't explain this, and I don't want you to criticize this. Please don't do that in your comments. This did happen. I was lying on the bed very tired, and I felt a baby's hand on my ankle. There was no baby there, and it woke me up, and Pam walked in the room and said, "You look like you've seen a ghost. What's happened?" I said, "Pam, I felt an infant's hand on my ankle. What does it mean?" And it's like the Spirit of God put it on my heart. You can have that child that I showed you. And I told Pam, we're going to try to have another baby. And she says, "I don't know that I can do it." Well, make a long story short, right after that, Pam became pregnant. I knew it would be a girl. And because of some complications for the last 2 months of the pregnancy, she had to stay lay down and not be active. But that little girl was born, and guess what her name was? Her name was Amanda. And she was born 20 years after the vision I saw, where a little girl told me her name was Amanda. Well, the thing that always made us curious was that Pam had had a miscarriage prior to Amanda being born. And we always wondered, was that baby Rochelle? Was that the second baby I saw? But when I saw little Rochelle in the vision, she didn't look healthy, but I can remember exactly what she looked like. If you drew it out for me, I would say that's her. And that's where this picture that I'm about to show you comes in. I was preaching in Griffin, Georgia, a number of years ago. I don't have the exact date. And there's a wonderful lady that now lives in Huntington, West Virginia, who at that time was studying to be a nurse and there in the area of Griffin. I don't remember the exact details, but I know who she is, etc. And she is an artist, and she was drawing pictures, and she brought in or had someone bring in on a Sunday morning at the Griffin Assembly of God in the green room a number of pictures for me to pick out. She wanted to bless me with pictures. She knew I loved artwork. When I saw this picture, I began to shake and I began to cry. I called her in. I said, "Where did you get the picture of this little girl?" And she began to explain it to me. I said, "That's the little girl I saw in my vision many years ago. That's Rochelle." She was even holding a stuffed animal. And I said, "It looks just like her. The eyes, the shape of the face, and the mouth. How did you draw this? No one has ever heard me describe her. I've never been able to. But I always said if I saw her, I know it was her." And this lady, by inspiration of God, drew a picture of a little girl. Now, y'all bear with me, because I have a hard time talking about this at times, and it really touches me. And this is the little girl that she drew in the picture. And I promise you, the length of hair and holding the little stuffed animal. And I never asked her to do this. I never described Rochelle to her, but it looks just like the girl. She gave me this picture, and I keep it in my office as a reminder that I believe that the soul and spirit of that little child that was miscarried is with the Lord. When David got Bathsheba pregnant, and the infant was born, It died 7 days later. And David said, I cannot bring it back, but I will go to where it is. Many years ago, a woman named Margaretta Davis in the 1800s had an experience of going to heaven. And she saw an infant paradise where little tiny infant spirits are taken. And it's like a huge nursery in heaven. And angels take care of them. And that spirit actually grows to a certain age. And then it's released to a children's paradise. Now, I don't know what you think about that. And honestly, I guess it doesn't matter to me because I know in my spirit that I have another one in heaven. Years ago, a woman wrote us. She knew nothing about this story. She knew nothing about Pam's miscarriage. She was from California. Her son had passed away and she saw her son. She had an experience of actually being in heaven and seeing her son. She says, but while she was in paradise, in heaven, she came across something very strange. It was a little girl that looked like she was 5 years old and had dark hair. Well, that's the kind of the color hair this child had in my dream many years ago. And she asked the little girl, who are you? And the girl said, I am the daughter of Perry and Pam Stone. And she said to us in the letter, oddly enough, she looked a lot like Pam as far as her features. And this woman who knew nothing about the miscarriage said, you have a child waiting for you. I'm sharing this with you not to create some theological discourse or argument on the internet, because no matter what I say, there's always somebody who wants to come on and argue. You're not going to take my joy away from me on this one. I believe that if you have had a miscarriage, whoever you are, that there will be a one waiting for you in heaven. There are so many stories you could tell, many, many stories where people have seen this, where people have talked about babies that were born stillborn and how they themselves had a life after death experience and went to heaven and saw the spirit and soul of that child that was actually playing and talking with the grandparents that had long gone to be with the Lord. Oh, I wish I had time to tell you these wonderful stories that we've come across over 45 years of traveling. Now, the reason, and I want to sum this up by saying this, the reason that Christians teach against abortion is because we do believe that the soul and the spirit, the eternal part of the child, comes in at conception, not when the umbilical cord is cut. Therefore, it is a life the moment that the sperm and the egg come together and begin to separate and form the life. It becomes a life at that moment. So this is the reason why we're not anti-women or, people that just scream about this. I have a right to my body. That's not what it's about. It's about that if God has given the soul and spirit from heaven into that little particle that's in a woman's womb, it has a right to live. And if somehow a miscarriage takes place, there has to be a reason for it. But it does not do away with that soul and spirit which will return to God. For the Bible said that when a man dies, the spirit goes back to God that gave it in Ecclesiastes. And Paul said to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And when Jesus died on the cross, he gave up the ghost, or gave up his spirit, and it came out of his body. One day that's going to happen to all of us. But for you women that have maybe lost a child in one way or the other, serve the Lord and follow him, because it's going to be interesting, because I do believe that they'll meet you when you make it to heaven with your soul and spirit. And it's a wonderful thing to think about, and it gives us great comfort. Now, this teaching on the soul of a child and the spirit of a child is very complicated. It would take me about an hour to an hour and a half to teach it. If you would like for me at some time to do a program on the spirit and soul of a child in its body at conception, just post a comment here, and I'd like to, I'll do that sometime, but please share this with any woman that you know that has had maybe a miscarriage. It gives us hope that we have family in heaven, because the Bible talks about the family of God in heaven and on earth. Thank you for your time. God bless you. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel, and never miss a video by clicking the bell to get the alerts when a new video is posted. This YouTube channel is made possible by your generous donations. So to support our outreach of teaching, visit perrystone.org/YT.